Imagine a country selling its future piece by piece, a nation forced to auction off its airports, its ports, its islands, even its history, all to pay a debt that seemed impossible to repay. This isn't a dystopian novel, it's the real story of Greece, a story of how a dream of prosperity turned into a decade-long nightmare. But this isn't just about spreadsheets and bailouts. It's about a fatal flaw, a hidden truth buried deep within the numbers that brought an entire continent to the brink of collapse. And the most shocking part? The same cracks are appearing in the global economy right now. To understand how Greece ended up in this position, we have to rewind. When Greece joined the Eurozone in 2001, it felt like a national victory. The country, the cradle of Western civilization, was finally taking its place at the heart of modern Europe. Adopting the euro, a strong and stable currency, was supposed to bring low inflation, cheap credit, and a wave of foreign investment. And for a while, it did. The 2004 Athens Olympics became a symbol of this newfound confidence. Money poured in, construction boomed, and the Greek economy grew at a pace it hadn't seen in decades. It felt like the party would never end. But beneath the surface, a dangerous game was being played. To join the euro, countries had to meet strict criteria, especially regarding their national debt and deficit. Greece, simply put, didn't qualify. So, how did they get in? With a little help from Wall Street. Through complex financial instruments called currency swaps, designed by major investment banks, Greece was able to legally hide billions of euros in debt, effectively cooking the books. It was a clever trick that made the country's finances look healthier than they really were. This allowed the government to borrow and spend as if the good times were permanent, funding generous pensions and public sector jobs without the tax revenue to back them up. Everyone, from politicians to the public, was happy to look the other way. Then, in 2008, the music stopped. The global financial crisis, triggered by the collapse of Lehman Brothers in the United States, sent shockwaves across the world. Suddenly, banks stopped lending, credit dried up, and investors became terrified of risk. They started looking closely at who they had lent money to, and their eyes turned to Greece. The creative accounting that had once been a clever solution was now exposed as a catastrophic liability. The newly elected government in 2009 made a shocking announcement. The country's deficit was n't the 6% they'd been told, but a staggering 12.7% of GDP, and it would later be revised even higher. The illusion shattered. This revelation triggered a full-blown panic. Investors realized Greek debt was far riskier than they thought and began demanding much higher interest rates to lend the country money. This created a death spiral. Greece needed to borrow more money just to pay the interest on its existing loans. But the cost of that new borrowing was becoming impossibly high. The country was careening towards bankruptcy. A Greek default wouldn't just be a local problem, it would be a European catastrophe. German and French banks held billions in Greek bonds. If Greece defaulted, those banks could fail, triggering a chain reaction that could collapse the entire Eurozone. To prevent this Armageddon, the Troika, the European Commission, the European Central Bank, and the International Monetary Fund stepped in with a massive bailout package in 2010. But this money came with harsh conditions. In exchange for the loans, Greece had to implement severe austerity measures. This meant deep cuts to public spending, slashing pensions and salaries, and raising taxes dramatically. The goal was to shrink the deficit and make the debt sustainable. The medicine, however, was brutal. The Greek economy, already in recession, was pushed into a deep depression. Unemployment skyrocketed, especially among the youth, with more than half of young people out of a job. Businesses closed, poverty rates soared, and social unrest exploded onto the streets of Athens. The people who had the least to do with causing the crisis were the ones paying the highest price. What was supposed to be a rescue felt like a punishment. The austerity measures, designed to shrink the debt, actually made it worse. As the economy collapsed, tax revenues plummeted, and the debt-to-GDP ratio, The very number they were trying to fix ballooned even further. Greece was trapped, and the bailouts kept coming, each one with more austerity attached. So, what can we learn from this tragedy? First, hidden debt is a time bomb. Whether it's a country using complex derivatives or a household maxing out credit cards, borrowing against an imaginary future always ends badly. The bill eventually always comes due. Second, a shared currency without a shared fiscal policy is inherently unstable. The Eurozone's members share a currency, but they don't share a budget or a treasury. This means that when one country gets into trouble, there is no easy mechanism to transfer resources and stabilize the system, leading to painful politically charged bailouts. And third, and perhaps most importantly, austerity as a one-size-fits-all solution can be devastating. Forcing a shrinking economy to cut spending can trigger a downward spiral that is incredibly difficult to escape. It's like trying to get a starving person to run a marathon. The Greek crisis serves as a stark warning. The same forces, record levels of government and corporate debt, complex financial instruments, and political division, are present in the global economy today. Are we destined to repeat the same mistakes, just on a grander scale? Or have we learned the painful lessons from a nation that was forced to sell its future? Thank you for watching. If you found this dive into financial history valuable, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more stories that explain how our world really works. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. See you next time.